James. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Christina Jones. I'm a procurement specialist with the Norcal PTAC. So what you're seeing here is our disclosure slide that this is current to the best of our ability as of today. So let's move forward. Oops. Okay, so let's look at our agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about general program overview. We're going to review the HUBZone rules and changes. There have been some recent changes that are designed to make it easier to get into the program, you know, of course, if you qualify, but also to keep companies that are HUBZone certified in the program. So we'll talk about the eligibility criteria, we'll review the HUBZone map, and then move right into the application. And we'll look at the application from the perspective that it is now, which is I have real screenshots of what you would see if you apply for HUBZone certification as of today. Later this year, HUBZone will be moving, like the other programs, Women-Owned Small Business and 8A certification to certified.sba.gov. So, but this is as of today if you were ready to apply for HUBZone status. So let's get into the program overview. What is HUBZone? It stands for Historically Underutilized Business Zone. The program was designed to increase employment in areas where there's underemployment and offer contract opportunities to those companies located in those areas who employ those who are underemployed. So HUBZone areas are typically areas of low, median household incomes, high unemployment, or both. And so just some facts about the program. Currently, there are approximately 6,000 plus firms that are certified in the HUBZone program. So that's a pretty small number because we're talking about nationally, only 6,000 firms. But it has upticked since I last did this presentation. It was 5,000. And then also just to know that there are 22,000 HUBZones across U.S. and U.S. territories. And in fiscal year 2018, there was $9.9 billion in federal procurements for HUBZone certified firms, supporting roughly 2,000 jobs. So again, this is kind of really sort of repetitive. I just kind of mentioned this, but increasing employment opportunities, stimulate capital investment in these areas that where there's high unemployment, and empower communities. So HUBZone is regulated by the FAR, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or the Code of Federal Regulations, 13 CFR 126.101. And with any certification or any government certification proposal or anything you're responding to, you want to make sure that you are familiar with the FAR regulation that's tied to it. So for this, we're going to talk about HUBZone specifically, which this regulation states that all federal departments or agencies that employ one or more contracting officers must abide by the rules of the HUBZone program. So many states and counties have their own similar programs, but it's not the federal HUBZone program. But a lot of times they overlap as far as location. So the SBA regulates and implements the program, which means they make the decision as far as who is certified or not, whether or not you qualify, and they also adjudicate protests. So if there is a protest of eligibility for a contract award, it goes through the SBA as well to determine the decision on that. So some key program benefits: 3% of all prime contract dollars are mandated for award to HUBZone firms. There are contracts set aside, so contracts that are set aside only for those who are certified by the SBA as a HUBZone firm to bid on. So it's not enough to simply be in a HUBZone. For instance, the map states that you're in a HUBZone, but you must be certified by the SBA as one. You're also eligible for sole source awards, so contracts that are not competed where you have an opportunity under the HUBZone program to receive those awards. And for full and open, for large business, there's a 10% price evaluation preference applied if they're using a HUBZone certified firm. So the price would be viewed as, the price that they put in would be viewed as 10% less. And there are some reserves for HUBZone small business concerns, that's what SBCs are, under multiple award contracts. So this is a, where there are multiple, to say, task orders under this contract, and there are some reserves that are set aside just as contracts set aside only for HUBZone certified firms to bid upon. Same thing, I think that's the same. I have in there. Okay, so let's look at the rules and regulations for Part 19, Subpart 19.13 outlines the specific rules and regs of the program. So these are the exact categories. If you were to look up this FAR regulation, will outline everything you need to know about complying with and applying for HUBZone Certify as far as from a regulatory standpoint. So the program has had some challenges in the past year, and which is why they've recently made some changes. And these are the three categories, and this slide actually I took from the SBA's, one of their presentations, which is, these are the three areas that they identified that were a challenge. Small businesses found the program difficult, instability regarding geographic eligibility. So that's the maps that are constantly changing. I'm in a HUBZone today, and then, you know, months from now, I'm not in a HUBZone. Even though there is a redesignation period, but just the constant changing maps of knowing whether or not you're in a HUBZone made the program a little difficult. Number two, the federal agencies are failing to meet the 3% goal. In general, I haven't seen in a very long time, if at all, that the agencies have met the 3% goal for HUBZone. So they're trying to make some changes to improve that, to make sure that more companies qualify, and not only qualify, they stay certified in the program. And so we'll be talking about some of those changes that they've made to make it easier. And then they said that the communities have experienced mixed results. So it made it difficult, for instance, with HUBZones constantly changing, for communities to actually leverage and build upon the economic development that the program provides. So there were some final rule changes that I outlined here. So these are some things that, again, that will benefit or help make it easier based on what I just presented. So HUBZone maps are currently frozen until 2021, and then they will update every 5 years instead of, you know, updating, you know, yearly. The 35% rule is amended to state once an employee qualifies under a specific uninterrupted period of time, they remain qualified. So these are referred to as legacy employees. So if 6 months prior they were in the HUBZone, they were, you know, living in a HUBZone prior to the certification, and 6 months after the company has been certified, they're still living in that location, then if they move at that point, they will be considered a legacy employee and still will be part of the 35% count. And eligibility at time of award. So the company would need to be certified and recertified once per year, and if there is an award, they would need to be, you know, certified during that time, but not recertified every time there's a new contract that's coming out. And this is a new one. There's an incentive for small businesses that purchase a building or enter into a long-term lease of 10 years or more. So with that, they will be eligible for remaining in the program for up to 10 years, even if the office location no longer qualifies as a HUBZone. So again, these are rules that are put in place to help to encourage more companies to become HUBZone certified and to keep companies certified as HUBZones. So these are some of the things that are also making it easier, providing faster certification decisions. So applications will be processed within 60 days of a complete submission. So complete meaning the initial evaluator has reviewed your application and determined all the documents are there and then assigned you to an analyst. So it's not from the point that you submit the application online. So we'll be moving, the application process will be moving to certified.sba.gov later this year. I don't think they've announced a specific date. But if any of you are familiar, the 8A program as well as the Woman-Owned Certification program are both on the portal, and it's pretty user-friendly as far as you can, you know, go in and out, upload documents and save them and then come back and complete it later. So you're not able to do that under the current HUBZone program, which is still on the old system. But later this year, they will be moving the HUBZone program over to that portal. And this is another thing that's pretty exciting. They're expanding what they call early engagement. So the SBA will be providing more direct assistance to supporting organizations like us, PTAC, also SBDCs that have government contracting, so that we can better assist our clients. And we can also, after we assist you, for instance, and determine that you're procurement ready, we can send an email to the HUBZone program and tell them this particular company was reviewed by the PTAC and we've determined that all the documents are here to the best of our knowledge. So that will, you know, give them a sense of comfort that things are in order and can move your application along a little quicker. So that's something that hasn't specifically expanded to all the PTACs, or not even our PTAC yet, but is something that's definitely coming soon. COVID-19 adjustments. So there was a temporary suspension under COVID-19 of annual recertification. Doesn't mean that you can't recertify now, but you will not be decertified if you don't recertify in 2020. And they will continue to recognize the HUBZone status of any student employees that a HUBZone firm has. So a lot of colleges, those areas are HUBZones. And so when companies employ students from those that live on the dorms, for instance, that were required to move because of COVID-19, the SBA has determined they will continue to recognize those students as part of the 35% of employees that meet the HUBZone requirement. Let's see, also teleworking. Teleworking will be okay. So your employees that, of course, have to shelter in place, they're teleworking, and so the HUBZone will take into account that they're required to telework and under the COVID-19 adjustments. And finally, if the HUBZone may expedite your application if you submit a complete package, and I want to really stress complete. So again, an analyst has reviewed it and determined that all the documentation is there. So that's one piece. And the second piece is that you're indicating that you will respond to a COVID-19 solicitation. So those two things together may expedite your application through the HUBZone program to be certified. So what are the types of HUBZones? I have them all listed here. So one that sometimes people ask questions about is the qualified census tract. This census tract is a subdivision of counties that, you know, may include just a few neighborhoods in a city, or in rural areas it may include like several towns. So Indian land, of course, qualified base closures. If the base has been closed, that's automatically considered a HUBZone. Qualified disaster areas, of course, for the disasters that we have, there are always some new redesignations of HUBZones. And something that's new that began in 2020 are governor designated areas as HUBZones. So they can petition the SBA to designate a new HUBZone, and it includes rural communities of $50,000 or less, or over 120% in unemployment. So far, I just heard from the SBA yesterday that there hasn't been any state that has petitioned the SBA for this yet, probably because they're busy with COVID-19, but this is something that they can do. So again, although the maps will be frozen for 5 years in the future, that's to help those who are already certified, but new areas can be designated all of the time. And just remember, when a county or a tract loses its HUBZone qualification, it is redesignated for 3 years, so that stays in place. So what that means is if your area, you know, obviously it's no longer economically depressed and you're no longer considered a HUBZone, then for the next 3 years you will be, for the program purposes, considered a HUBZone. Oh, there. Okay. So here's a HUBZone map. You can just search, well, there will be a link at the end of the slide, but you can also just search SBA HUBZone map and this will come right up. It's really user-friendly. You can just put your address in and see if your headquarters qualifies, as well as your employees at 35% you use, or your employees qualify as 35% of them as living in a HUBZone. So remember, the map currently is frozen until 2021, and you can also click on the link to that map here as well on this slide. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about eligibility requirements. First off, you need to be small by SBA standards, meaning your NAICS codes, your North American Industry Classification System code, should indicate that you're small, whether it's by sales revenue or by number of employees. You must be owned and controlled by at least 51% of the ownership must be with a U.S. citizen or a CDC, an agricultural cooperative, or Indian tribe. Your principal office must be located in a designated HUBZone. So principal office meaning the location where the greatest number of employees at work at any one location. So not necessarily your headquarters, what you call your headquarters, but where, you know, the greatest number of employees work. At least 35% of these employees must reside in a HUBZone. And just note that there may be different rules for tribal governments, Alaska Native corporations, and so forth listed here. And this is a link to those specific rules within the FAR. So why the declines? Not meeting the 35% employee HUBZone residency requirement. So maybe someone in the past, you've gotten just 35% of your employees to qualify, and then someone leaves or moves to another area. That legacy employee rule that I mentioned will help some with that, as far as if you, again, they're certified, excuse me, they live in that HUBZone area 6 months prior to certification and 6 months after. But this is ongoing, has been, one of the main reasons for declines. Also not meeting the principal office requirement, or not meeting both. So again, it's very important to count your employees correctly, and here's a link directly to, or excuse me, not a link, a reference to the specific FAR on that, because sometimes companies really get confused about what an employee is considered. And as far as HUBZone is concerned, all individuals employed on a full-time basis, part-time, or other could be considered an employee. And so other meaning they work at least a minimum of 40 hours per month. And this would include any employees that you obtained from like a temporary agency, a leasing company, possibly a PEO. Those would all be included if they meet the minimum of 40 hours per month. So we're going to go through a few examples of principal office example, and a couple of examples we're going to go through here. So Company A, or Company Inc. is a small company that makes widgets. Their headquarters is located in the urban area that is not HUBZone, according to the map. The two owners and an administrative person spend the majority of their hours there. The company has a manufacturing site across the street located in a HUBZone. The owners and the admin all live in a HUBZone a few miles away. So there are 6 employees at the manufacturing site. There are 9 employees total just kind of skipping ahead, does this company meet the principal office requirement? And the answer is yes. So I just kind of, just for a visual to make this a little easier to see, you can see the principal office has, again, that's the hub, is a designated hub zone, and 6 of their employees out of the 9 work in that hub zone, and 3 work in the non-hub zone. So the next is a similar example I've put here for you to, look through at your leisure and just, again, determine why the company would or not be in a principal office located in a hub zone. So let's move on to a 35% residency requirement example. So a company Inc. is a small IT services company. Their headquarters is located in an urban area that is not hub zone according to the map. The 2 owners and an admin support person spend the majority of their work hours there. And then across the street in a qualified census tract is a government facility where 6 engineers perform contract-specific work. The owners and the admin all live in a hub zone a few miles away. There are 6 employees at the government site. One of them is part-time and works only 20 hours every week, which still, if you look at this, will meet the 40 hours per week requirement. Per month requirement. So only one of the 6 employees who works at the government site lives in a hub zone. So the answer is yes, because they still have 35% because they have 4 people that still are in a hub zone. So this example, Trainers Inc. is a small company that provides training services. There is 1 owner and 2 employees. Everyone works from their home and everyone lives in a hub zone. Does this company meet the principal office requirement? And does this company meet the 35% requirement? And the answer is yes, because they're all in hub zones. I think that one's a simple one. Okay, so let's talk about ownership and control for a minute. John Johnson is 100% owner of the firm, Inc. The firm, Inc. owns ABC LLC. John Johnson is a U.S. citizen. ABC LLC applies for HUBZone certification. Do they meet the ownership and control requirement? The answer is no, because the firm is controlling ABC and ABC needs to own and control itself. Okay. So let's move into the actual application. So the most successful firms, applying for HUBZone plan for success. So first steps are, do you qualify? Can you maintain the principal office requirement? They're making it a little bit easier as far as attempt to obtain the principal office requirement will be accepted as long as at least you're employing at least 20% HUBZone residents. So that's another rule that's come into place to help you maintain that principal office requirement. Can you maintain the 35% employee residency requirement? Actually, I want to actually correct that. The maintain the 35% employee residence requirement, that is the attempt to maintain, where it implies to employing at least 20% of the HUBZone residents. Have you examined and gathered the documentation required? Review the HUBZone application guide. So the HUBZone actually, for quite a while now, does a really great job of having a really complete application guide as far as any questions. Also, the frequently asked questions are pretty good. And then finally, they have once per week, they have a Q&A, I think it's on Thursdays now, for an hour where you can call in and ask questions. So I'm told that most of the questions that they're looking for are really like technical issues or general. If it's specific to an application like a status or something like that, they will ask you to email them for a status. So, and contact us. Use your PTAC, your local PTAC, for a pre-review of your documentation. Again, they're going to be implementing that early engagement process where a PTAC that verifies that they have reviewed your paperwork and everything is order may streamline your application and move it forward a little more quickly. So steps for certification. Step 1, review the frequently asked questions in the HUBZone application guide I just talked about. Gather supporting documentation. Always I always recommend with any certification to gather your supporting documentation before you move forward with the certification. A lot of the questions can be answered by gathering documentation first. Review and ask any questions. The HUBZone office hours, you can find that on their site, but like I said, I believe they're on Thursday. There's a call-in phone number for that. Use the calculator especially if there's any question as far as eligibility or compliance, to confirm that you meet the minimum principal office and 35% employee residence, HUBZone residency. And once you've done that, you can move into the general login system. So this is, you may be familiar with this, but for those who aren't, it's a little bit more antiquated than the certified.sba.gov site. Is original site where 8A certification was located as well. You can also currently access dynamic small business search through general login system. So, but we'll look at that specifically in a moment. Your SAM also needs to be updated prior to you starting any certification, federal certification, and then you can complete and submit the online HUBZone application and submit your requested supporting documentation within SBA's required deadline, which is usually 10 days. They give you 10 days to submit, for instance, like payroll information. Okay, and this is important that under this old system, again, this will go away when the process is moved to the new portal, but currently you need to complete it in one sitting. So you want to make sure that you have everything gathered and you're able to complete it. Otherwise, you know, if it times out, then, you know, that's it. You'll have to start it over. So here's what it looks like to register for a GLS account. So hopefully when you receive these slides, if you need guidance, of course, us, the PTAC counselors, can help you as well. But if you were to walk through this, this will give you screenshots of what you can expect when you are registering for a GLS account. And also we'll be looking at what you can expect when you're looking at the actual application as well. So you'll choose HUBZone, and I think you'll need to select the DUNS number. So you'll need to actually, attach your business profile. And so it should appear here in your business profile box, which will show like your company name. And then you'll enter the GLS system. Of course, it gives you the warning about accessing a U.S. government site. And then this slide shows the applications that are available for your company. So here I just assumed we have one certification we're pursuing here, which is the only one we can pursue here at the moment anyway, which is HUBZone, because 8A again and Women-Owned have moved to the other portal. And now we're going to enter the application. So this is as if you are in the application right now. So first step is to verify you are in a HUBZone. So you may say that I've already done that with the HUBZone map, but they're requiring you to do this in the application. Just note that there are some problems in this system, this older system, of stating you are not in a HUBZone when the new map shows that you are in a HUBZone. So if that happens, you may need to email the help desk and let them know, show them that on the map you are in a HUBZone, and then they can walk you through the process to fix that for you. So if it says you're not in a HUBZone, but the other one says you are, the new map, just know that there is a glitch there. Okay, so this is your last chance to review your requirements before you begin. They're telling you to review this now, but I'm telling you to review this before you move into the application, because you have a limited time to complete it, and you want to have everything in order before you proceed. And then there'll be 17 steps you'll see, like we're on step 1, that you'll walk through in order to get to the final submission page. So here's the section A, the first section of the application. This is determination of qualification by geographical area. And then B will be your general business information. And did it click? Doesn't seem to be moving. Oh, I guess it was slow. Let me see if I can go back. Okay, so Section C is ownership and control determination, and you'll find this across any certification that you need to own, not only own, but also control the company 51 by 51%. So this is just verification of that, the questions that they ask here. And then Section D is your required financial information, and E is verification of employment at 35%. Section F is checking for affiliation. So if you are affiliated with another company, you know, they may drag the assets of that company into your certification process. So into your assets, in other words, how much assets do your firm have? So if your firm, you know, is under another company, or using the resources of another company, capital, things of that nature, then they may be considered affiliated as one firm. And then here you are going to, you've completed your application, they give you an application number. And so what happens next is that the highest ranking officer of the company will be sent an email and asked to basically affirm and sign, authorize the application to move forward. So, you know, just be careful that you list the right person in there, because sometimes I've seen this go in a circle because someone in the office is working on it and they're trying to send the application to the authorized person, the 51% owner, and it would cause a problem because of the way they enter the email addresses. So just know that that person is the one that needs to authorize it. And the requested documents that they will ask you for is documents showing compliance with the 35% employee residency. They want you to show that you're complying with the principal office requirements and ownership and control, and then they will ask for some financial documentation. And once they ask you for it, you will have 10 business days to submit those required documents. Okay, so I just kind of covered this. The application is not really active until the firm's highest ranking officer completes the verification step. So if you determine that you're not eligible, you may cancel or withdraw the application and reapply when you're ready. And if you decline, you may seek certification after 90 calendar days from the date of the decline. So, and I've mentioned this a few times, but yes, the online application cannot be saved. It's completed in one setting. But again, like I said, later this year, it's going to move to the new system. So at that time, you will follow the same process as you do with 8A and Woman Owned, where you can upload documents, come in and out, and submit when you're ready. So let's look at some common mistakes. Your SAM and your Dynamic Small Business Search and/or is not updated. So really your SAM registration, making sure that is active. Well, you won't be able to move forward. You'll know that it's not active because you won't be able to move forward without an active SAM registration. So that's important to make sure you have that in place first. The application times out. So each page must be completed within 60 minutes, which is a long time, but you know, it shouldn't take you that long for each page, but just know that there is a, you know, one-time sitting to complete this. Unable to access the general login system. So sometimes there's a problem connecting the business profile, but you can email GLS, I think it's gls@sba.gov, with any technical problems you're having. And you can also sign in to the weekly meeting that the HUBZone certification has on Thursdays. So we've kind of already discussed that. Supporting documents not ready to be submitted within the time frame. So they give you 10 days to submit those documents. I've seen some companies submit right outside of that and still, you know, they continued with their application, but they reserve the right basically after 10 days to just, you know, reject your application because you didn't submit it within the time frame. And let's see, why is this not moving? Oh, okay. Okay, so lack or insufficient supporting documentation that covers the date of verification is the #1 reason for certification delay. So again, this is why I recommend that you assemble the documentation before filing and make sure you have everything in place and your questions are answered, or if anything seems like it's not in alignment with what you entered in the application, what you plan to enter in the application, you can correct it at that point. So emails are sent from SBA letting you know we've received your application and also that we've assigned an analyst or if we have any questions. So please check your spam for SBA's emails because a lot of times they do go into spam, even when there's companies that are certified and they were sent a reminder about renewing. So just remember to check your spam folder from time to time to make sure an email has not been sent there. So I talked a little bit about affiliation. Here's the rule that you can reference. And you can also, like it mentions here, consult with us or reach out to the HUBZone office about affiliation if you're concerned about being affiliated with another firm. So let's talk about how you can maintain the certification. So you must notify the SBA if there's been any material change that can affect your HUBZone status. So there's the, change in your ownership, of course, business structure, if you've changed from a sole proprietorship to, an S Corp or something to that extent, change in your firm's principal office, and the change in the firm's 35% HUBZone residency. So I talked about this earlier. You must attempt to maintain, and by attempting to maintain is defined as employing at least 20% HUBZone residents. Now you're going to recertify once per year instead of every 3 years. And so that's in alignment with the other programs that are certifying once per year. It may seem like it's more paperwork, but it's actually easier for, I believe, and also the SBA believes, for you to keep track. Every year I have to certify HUBZone like I do with my other certifications. And you should incorporate maintaining HUBZone certification into the business plan, meaning maintaining the location, that's a HUBZone location, as well as number of employees. So here's first an overview of how the government has done with HUBZone goals. So the 2017 and the 2019 numbers haven't come out yet. So this is the latest that I have as of today. So the 2017 achievement was 1.65% of a 3% goal. And for subcontracting is 1.3% of a 3% goal. So you see that there is, that was for 2017. And for 2018, it upticked for both. Over 2% for HUBZone. That was a $9.9 billion in federal awards I mentioned way earlier in the slides. And then for subcontracting, it upticked to 1.4%. So still below the 3% goal, well below. And so hopefully with these changes, they will get closer or hopefully meet the HUBZone goals. So here's where you can locate the projects, beta.sam.gov. Single point of entry for federal government procurements over $25,000. So you should register for an account for email alerts, and so they can notify you whenever there is a opportunity. USA Spending, you can conduct some historical research of contracts that have been awarded under HUBZone, so you can see, who's spending with HUBZone or who has spent with HUBZone. And Federal Procurement Data System is also a repository of federal contract awards, and actually the point of entry prior to the information pushing to USA Spending. Federal Procurement Data System is the point of entry for the contract awards, and this information is recorded in real time. So you can see, you know, again, how has the government done, who's buying in HUBZone, and also follow the forecast to see, are there any opportunities that are being forecast for HUBZone firms. I guess that was my next bullet. So identify any agencies that have upcoming HUBZone opportunities as well. So here's our resources and tools slide. So I just kind of gave you a link back to the different sections that I discussed. So you can easily find the application, the FAQ, of course the regulations, the application, and so forth. So this is for you to, hopefully when you receive the slides, make it easier for you to just dig in and look at what the requirements are and how to move through the application. But I also want to stress that if you need assistance with this, you can, if you're not a PTAC client, you can become a PTAC client, and we can assist you by, again, helping you review your paperwork and walking you through any issues you may have with whether or not determining qualification or anything that comes up with getting certified. All right, James, I'm going to turn it back over to you. James? Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just, before we go into questions, I'll go ahead and review the slides. So these are a couple of events that we have coming up. The first one is Elevate Your Business with CMAS, California Multiple Award Schedules, and that will be held on Wednesday, June 3rd. So if you're interested in getting on a CMAS schedule or just learning more about what that is, you can attend that session on June 3rd. And then we'll have a webinar, Finding Contracting Opportunities with Caltrans. So if you are interested in working with Caltrans or currently working with Caltrans, you may be interested in this webinar on Wednesday, June 24th.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
All right. For some reason, my phone decided to drop the call, so I was frantically getting back on. All right.
Kind of went through those too, but if you have anything to add about the calendar, maybe.
Yeah, just go check out our calendar. We keep it pretty updated, so you can find out whatever we've got going on there. We also have events from our partners that we think would be useful for anyone interested in these topics as well. So thanks, and now is the time for the Q&A. As I mentioned, there's two ways to enter your questions. The first is to enter it into the chat window. That is the most common way, but you are also welcome if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a brief question. And just to note, if you can keep your questions as specific as possible, not necessarily specific to your individual business, but just a question that's not too general, and we can get to it once we get to it, and we'll see what we can do. So here we go. I'll start reading them out. Does that work for you, Christina?
Yep.
All right. Looking through. Charlotta Carter asks, I have a HUBZone location that we are planning to open an office for, but it will lose its HUBZone status at the end of 2021. How long will I have to move to a new location? Well,
first of all, hi, Charlotta. So this is, it will be redesignated for 3 years. So if you're certified prior to 2021, it'll be redesignated. So that's the time period you will have to move to a new location.
All right.
Okay.
Some people were having audio issues, so I'm having to sort through those. Mm-hmm. Yes, we will, as I mentioned, we'll give you a copy of the presentation slides as well as the video within the next day. Charlotta has another question here. With so many businesses having to start over, how can a small business that is located in a hub zone re-engage to work with the government on contracts from ground zero?
I'm not really sure exactly how to answer that, other than if they're restarting and pivoting into a new industry, trying to find out what opportunities, again, doing that research, what's available. Currently, what are they bidding? And then also what's historically been bid. And if you're in a hub zone and you can identify, for instance, a opportunity, a COVID-19 opportunity, that will move your application along quicker, as long as you are, the documents are complete and you're considered procurement ready. And procurement ready meaning, you know, we as a PTAC or whomever is a supporting agency of the SBA has determined that you are, you know, have the capital, the resources, and able to bid. So those are things in as far as HUBZone that can move you, help you move along in the certification, and also possibly give you, look for an opportunity again in the COVID solicitations that are available.
Great, thanks, Christina. Maria Stoudenbauer has a question. Looks like she revised it. I'll read the revised version. I do not live in a hub zone, but pay two individuals on 1099 that do live in a hub zone. Do I qualify?
So these two individuals, if they're working 40 hours or more per month, then yes, you can count them as employees. So then more, you know, then you would qualify, because you would be counting them as employees.
So I have another question kind of related to that. So if I found a bid in regards to the COVID-19, and with that, if I got that bid, I would be able to hire people in a hub zone area. If I don't currently have the actual employees on hand at this point, would that qualify me, or would I have to have them as actual? Because I don't have the financials to back it up as a payment.
Right, and you yourself, currently it's just you and then the two 1099s, correct?
That's correct.
So it would be based, the certification would be based on that. You know, it couldn't be based on, if I get certified, then I will hire out of HUBZone. So that would, you know, it would be based on the three of you.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have other questions from our participants here? You can follow.
I see one there from B. Deer. It's not
Yes, I provide, yeah, B. Deer is asking, I provide accounting services, but is there a government contract for such type of services?
There are. There's not as many that, well, financial services, yes. I find a lot of firms that do that type of work with large primes, like large professional services firms like Booz Allen and those types of companies that have huge financial services contracts. So there are opportunities, definitely.
All right. Not seeing any more questions. Once again, you can unmute yourself and ask a question aloud if your fingers are tired or something.
Hi, my name is Kim. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I do already have a HUBZone certification. Well, the office is my home office, which is in a HUBZone. But I'm IT, so naturally we work remote. But I wanted to know two questions. One, can I hire anyone that lives in a HUBZone in the United States?
Yeah.
Okay. And then two, what's the difference between a 35% versus 20% of your employees? Like you said, well, 20.
Yes, 35% is required to qualify for the program. And once you're in the program, this is just something to help you. So they, of course, they really want you to maintain 35% employment of HUBZone residents. But they will accept an attempt to maintain that 35%. And by attempting to maintain, they view that, define that as employing at least 20%. So no less than 20% at any time once you're certified.
Ah, okay. And I can continue to hire because it's based on project need, you know, with government contracts. So sometimes, especially college kids, they live in different states,
Right.
but we work virtual, so it doesn't matter as long as they're in. It doesn't matter if it's a different state from the home office.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's a different state from home. They just have to live. The rule is that they must live not in your hub zone, but just in a hub zone. You know.
Okay. Thank you. This is helpful.
Thank you.
All right. Charlotte has a question here. She asks, can your principal office be a virtual office?
So your principal office is where the majority of your employees work. So usually not in a virtual office is where they work. So probably not, but you know, that's the rule.
Hi, this is Charlotte. Can I be a little bit more specific? Yes, I work from my home. I do a lot of consulting. So I have an office in my home. So if I establish a virtual office out of my home, would that still qualify if the virtual office is in a HUD zone?
So when you say virtual office, will you be going there every day, or is it just established for address only?
Yeah, most of these are established for, I guess, like what they call co-op offices, like incubator offices.
Right.
And I've seen advertisements for those. So if I had one of those, would I qualify? Would I have to physically go there every day?
Well,
I'll have an employee working there every day.
You have an employee working there every day?
No, not yet. No, it's just me, Mama. I'm just by myself. So I'm just trying to strategize.
Yeah.
So,
it has to be where the majority of, and I'm just going to go back to the rule because you know, the virtual office is a little different, but I'm just going to say that it's where the majority of your employees work. So if that is you, then you have to spend most of your time over at this virtual office.
but if everyone works remotely, because I have to travel, well, I'm basically IT. Everybody works from home. Everybody have their laptops. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. But if I'm working here at my home and I have someone in a HUD zone working from their home, but I still want a virtual office so I can have a good business address or co-working spot. We can meet up every now and then if needed.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I think that the best, what you said there is really the best strategy as far as if you're going to hire an employee that lives in a hub zone. So they're living and working from their hub zone. And then say, for instance, if there's just two of you and you're not living in a hub zone, then that's still, you know, 50% of you live and work in a hub zone, right? Because if there were two of you.
Correct.
So I think it's a better strategy as far as if they're working from home based on where they work versus a virtual office.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Minu Sapa has a question asking, are there any services regarding IT services? My husband and I, database application specialist, and is there any IT contract?
Yeah, there's lots of IT contracts. Become a PTAC client and we can help you with conducting the research and show you how to find the opportunities. We can also sign you up for a free bid match service, which will automatically send you opportunities for federal, state, local cities and counties that you'd like to be notified of those.
BDR is asking, what if you don't have any employees, just yourself?
That's perfectly fine. You are the employee, so as long as you live and work in a hub zone, then you can qualify.
All right. Benson is asking, we are a two-person LLC. We're both owners and employees. That is, we treat ourselves as employees for all payroll purposes. Do we qualify?
Well, I mean, there was no mention about the hub zone being in the hub zone. And hello, Benson, I think I know you. So as long as there's two of you, so just look at if one of you is living and working in a hub zone, that's your 50, you're over 35%. So I'm not sure where your locations are, but that's really the factor that we need to look at.
All right, do we have any last brief questions? We're right at 11 now.
A question. The 40 hours, is it total for the hub zone, or is it the 40 hours a month per employee?
Yeah, per employee, 40 hours per month.
Got it. Okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead and exit this. Thank you for everyone for joining, and thanks so much to Christina Jones for hosting. We're cutting things off now, but want to let you know that you're going to receive an email from us shortly. This email will have a link to a survey that we'd really appreciate if you fill out, just to let us know how we did in this webinar. It helps us stay funded and keep improving our services. And as I've promised, there'll be a recording of today's webinar, and the slides will be posted as well. This email will give you a link where you'll be able to find these resources no later than tomorrow. Spoiler alert, it's just on our website, norcalptac.org/calendar. So I'll upload both of those there and then let everyone know once that's completed. Thanks for joining our HUBZone webinar, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.